This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name is Kosiva Jansen. This show is always live and broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. Don't forget, we also stream live on YouTube. You can also watch us back on demand on our YouTube channel now. After the guilty verdict in the Memoir case yesterday, police in Douglasdale stands accused of more brutality after a new video emerged on social media. What's your reaction to the latest video of alleged police brutality? You can watch the full 5-minute video on our website. It's sabc.co.za/news. You can send your reaction to @SABC Newsroom on Twitter. That was our question of the day on the screen there. We'll talk to the South African Council of Churches then on measures to regulate and monitor church activities here in South Africa. We'll get some reaction from Zimbabwe after yesterday's State of the Nation address. 3 men accused of an albino Muti killing did not want bail yesterday. That'll be an interesting topic for discussion later. Also, we talk business opportunities on YouTube. Jennifer Teague is in our book slot, and we close with the business of design from Cape Town. But first, let's get the day's news from Anindo Mal.
Good morning, I'm Anindo Mal. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate says it will investigate a video of alleged police brutality by Douglasdale police. This comes after 2 officers were filmed allegedly choking a man until he passed out while his friend begged him not to harm him. The incident happened last week in Fourways, north of Johannesburg. Newsroom will be talking to police spokesperson Kay Makubela to get the latest on the story in a few minutes' time. Meanwhile, in Mozambique, Mira Macia's family says they will never find closure. 8 former policemen found guilty of murdering the Mozambican taxi driver will now appeal their guilty verdict. Macia died after he was dragged behind a police van in Davidson on the East Rand in 2013. The High Court in Pretoria ruled yesterday that all 8 were complicit in Macia's death. Macia's parents spoke exclusively to SABC News.
I
can't be happy with them going to jail because they will come back and Mido will never come back and I will never see him again.
I live with a broken heart and I will live with this until I die.
In KwaZulu-Natal, police are investigating what caused the light aircraft to crash and burst into flames yesterday. 2 people were killed in the crash near Winkelspruit on the south coast. The police investigation will look into suspected engine failure. Roger Kebble's lawyer Kim Warren says the mining magnate did not fully recover from the death of his son, Brett Kebble. The 78-year-old Roger Kebble was found dead in his car with a gunshot wound to his head in Cape Town yesterday. His son was killed in what was found to have been assisted suicide in September 2005. And the UN says it's ready to act immediately unless South Sudan's President Salva Kiir signs a peace deal with rebels. Kiir is scheduled to sign a deal to end months of brutal civil war later today. His spokesperson has, however, said Kiir still has reservations. Meanwhile, fighting between forces in the country has displaced over 2.2 million people. Well, remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for SABC Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter @SABC Newsroom. Evan, over to you.
Thank you. Just a day after 8, now former policemen were found guilty of murdering Mozambican taxi driver Mido Macia, another case of alleged police brutality has surfaced. A video of this alleged brutality by Douglasdale police did the rounds online since yesterday. Titled "Police Brutality Hits Again, Secret Video Footage, Douglasdale SAPS." The video purports to show 2 men in an exchange with 2 other men in blue and a police vehicle in the background bearing the Douglasdale police markings. Now, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate says it will investigate the footage. And to give us the latest, well, we are joined on the line by police spokesperson Lieutenant Kay Makubela. Very good morning to you, Lieutenant Makubela. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, sir, and morning to the viewers.
Just tell us, how will you go about verifying the authenticity of this latest video?
Well, after we have received the video, we had opened a case of assault first, and the case was transferred to the IP for further investigation. And also we will be investigating if the members are going to face the disciplinary hearing for the brutality.
Now, I understand, or we hear that a case has been opened at the Douglasdale police station against these officers. Is this the case, and how will this proceed?
Yes, indeed, the case has been opened, and it will be investigated by the IPIT. But so far, we had done our best, making sure that as soon as we got the information, a case of assault opened.
And what do you think? It's only assault? These are the charges that these police officers will be facing?
Well, it will depend on the investigation. When the investigation is completed, it will be taken for decision, and that will be up to the prosecution to decide how many charges are going to be instituted to the two police officers.
Now, Lieutenant Makibela, you know, yesterday we've had the case of Mido Masia where a guilty verdict was found, and at this time there's a lot of focus on police brutality within the police. What is your reaction to the latest with regards to the timing after what happened in court yesterday?
Well, the circumstances of the video will be investigated. However, if indeed there was the mishandling of the community members, it's what the provincial commissioner is condemning. And we will be condemning the brutality of the community by the police. As the police, they know what to do when they found someone who had committed crime, rather than to mishandle the person.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant K. Makibela, joining us firstly for joining us today and for giving us a little update as to how this process will proceed. Very disturbing scenario that's played out on social media. Of course, it's still to be verified, and let's wait for the verification process and the police investigation to take its course. Now, the parents of Mozambican taxi driver Mido Masia, who was killed after being dragged behind a police vehicle in 2013, say the conviction of the 8 former police officers yesterday will not bring back their son. It's been an emotive issue, and lots have been said on social media. Let's take a look at some of the views that have been coming in. Well, unfortunately, we can't have those comments up yet. Let's take a look at what the picture of the day looks like today, and that was outside, of course, outside the court yesterday. This one from Ulrich J. van Veren says, "Rest in peace, Mido Masia. Mozambique, tied and dragged behind a police van. South African police are guilty of murder." Not all South African police, one should add. There were 8 members of police that were found guilty of the murder of Mido Masia in this case. Now, another issue that's quite emotive here in South Africa. The South African Council of Churches has called for the basic certification of pastors to protect people from what it called objectionable, heretical and alien practices. This comes after a series of reports involving a young pastor who made his followers eat snakes, hair and a variety of other objects during the service. Earlier this month, the council met to discuss the unethical practices by pastors. The Commission for the Promotion and Protection of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities also weighed in on the matter, saying that it will launch an investigation into some of these practices and the reasoning behind it. Now, today we are fortunate to be joined in studio by Bishop Mlungisi Mbulwana. Very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us, the Acting Secretary General of the SACC. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. I might end up being acting in Mlungisi. The name is Malusi.
Oh, well, I will have to take that. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you to my producers for hanging me out to dry here very early in the morning. But I want to talk to you about this issue that is very emotive in South Africa. It's caused a lot of traction, not just in social media, but in the mainstream media. Just firstly, I would like to start with your reaction to some of these, what we call objectionable practices that's been going on recently. We see lots of different scenarios played out in South Africa. The sale of holy water, the sale of holy honey. We see people eating grass now. We see people eating snakes and so forth. Overall, what's your take?
It's very disturbing indeed. We take kind of three positions on this. The first one is that, and to the extent that some of these things are being done in the name of the Christian faith, we certainly are not the only organization of organized churches in South Africa. But we take our responsibility seriously in this regard. But also we consult with other formations of church organizations to say we have a responsibility together to defend the reputation of the Christian faith. And that's what we're doing. That's the first thing we're doing. So we say, right, our constitution provides for Eben to start his own faith and say, according to Eben, salvation comes in serving this or that, snakes, rats, whatever. We are saying, don't say that in the name of the Christian faith. That's the first thing. The second thing is to say, there are practices, doesn't matter what the religion is, there are practices that are at odds with basic human decency and the Constitution in terms of people's human rights. And in that regard, we expect the state to take its course, particularly the institutions such as the CRL as well as the Human Rights Commission.
Now, you're talking about the CRL. I had them here on Monday, and they told me that they're going to launch an entire investigation into not just these kinds of practices that we see on screen now, but also into the commercialization of religion and the huge financial aspects, not just in these churches, but all churches. What's your reaction to that?
That's most welcome because it will clean up the process. I think that it is the duty of the state to make sure that everybody is within the law. There's no issue at all about that as far as we are concerned. I think that we too, in fact, we are busy working on something that said the South Africa we shall pray for. Certainly the South Africa we shall pray for does not have the kinds of religious practices we are experiencing today. And so we'll also be launching our own investigation into that. What exactly is the status in our environment?
The thing that I find disturbing is the rise of men and women that call themselves prophets, that call themselves apostles, and all these kinds of biblical names. Do you think the regulation and certification of pastors in general will make this item go away?
No, it will not. Because as I said, if I can stand on an anthill and declare myself anything, and people will follow. But there are two pieces around that. The first one is that those who are responsible for the faith, such as we are, have a duty to say, if anybody needs training and certification, we'll provide it. But we must have a standard. And that statement came out of a consultation, not just from the SACC, but from a broad consultation of other organizations of Christian churches that say, we do need to have some kind of standard that says, at least this is the core. And in order to meet that standard, we should be willing to provide training and certification. That's one. But secondly, we know that people follow these people anyway, and if they're going to do it, we must know that there are two parts to it. The first one is that the people themselves have got their own challenges. I mean, we've got a huge social fabric problem in our country that results in people following drugs, following all kinds of addictions, including this one. But the other part of it is that some people are so gifted that their charisma is able to hypnotize people and make them to do things. I mean, do you remember the people that committed mass suicide in Johnstown, Guyana, over 900 people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, that does happen. So there's going to be no stop to it, but at least we can curb it.
I want to ask you a general question around the rise of commercial religion on the African continent. How do you view this? I know there's one element that's charismatic and so forth, but we live in a time where we find ourselves increasingly under pressure from all sorts, whether it be economic, cultural, all these kinds of practices. Has this become a haven of where false hope is being peddled to an increasingly desperate populace?
That's one. And the other is that it also has become a space for opportunists to do that kind of thing. I mean, some of the practices are absolutely outlandish. But the fact is that people follow them. And so we are seeing a rise of it. Recently, I was at a meeting of the General Secretaries of Christian Councils in SADC. All of us are expressing the same concern. It's spreading across the continent. People are making money from people.
How are we going to deal with this?
I think we need to deal it through the revenue services. The other day we had people coming, lawyers coming to our office, and I saw this in the newspaper also as well, of clients who came to the lawyers to say a pastor in Springs made them give as much as 600,000 rand. And one of the people has actually lost their home. And so that does happen, and it's rising and rising. We need to make sure that monies are collected properly. There must be no money laundering, and that, in fact, the tax office does what it should do.
Well, Bishop Malusi, I thank
you. Sir.
I thank you. I thank you.
I have no problem with the Mlungisi because it also means Ulungisa is to put things right. And that's what we're trying to do.
So we put it right. Let's hope that we can get our church practice back on track, because it's very important, I think, for all people to have a place where we can worship whatever it is that we worship without the fear of being taken for a ride, as we see in some instances. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you very much. Now, we carry on. And we go back to, of course, our top story today is around the police brutality video. Of course, the parents of Mozambican taxi driver Mido Masia, who was killed after being dragged behind the police fence, say the conviction of those police officers, the 8, will not bring back their son. Yeah, some of those views that we couldn't show to you a little bit earlier. Let's have a look. Zamo says, Konje, Mido Masia's killers were convicted. Justice for my Mozambican brother. Ordinary Citizen said, I do not condemn the judge's conviction on Mido Masia case, but this breeds more of people resisting arrest. Talking about RSA politics. Yes, we have to find a way to get people to work with the police. How do we build the bridge between police and the populace? Mido Masia police brutality. So glad for the conviction of the 8 cops. We wait for sentencing, says Toko Masina. And then Mahogany Mandy says, let the punishment fit the crime. Certainly is the case. And we have to be very clear that our policemen and women in South Africa do a fantastic job under very difficult circumstances. But, as is the case in every business, there are some that don't always follow the rules. Let's move on now and take a look at the front pages from around the globe. We start in the United Kingdom. The Daily Telegraph reports that barefoot, blindfolded and dressed only in blue hospital pajamas, the Moroccan gunman who attacked passengers on a train from Amsterdam to Paris was led into a court building in the French capital yesterday. Moving to the USA, the USA Today reports that the Islamic State has become infamous for destroying historical artifacts in land it controls, from the Mosul Museum in northern Iraq to the ancient Assyrian city of Nimrud. Finally, in China, the South China Morning Post says the People's Bank of China cut its key lending rate by 0.25 percentage points to 4.6 in an effort to calm stock markets after 2 days of absolute turmoil. Time for us to take a break. Now you're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
Hello, it's a favorite minister here. Yane, party is a very nice language because it was written by you, the people. Here's a good one. Pry hard, an individual who pries against all odds. Hoy! Give me water!
Help make party South Africa's 12th official language. Sign the petition today.
This one is good, hey?
Welcome back. It's Newsroom. Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe has proposed a number of measures aimed at growing the economy and creating jobs. President Mugabe, who presented his State of the Nation address, unveiled a 10-point plan to revamp the agriculture and mining sectors and tackle corruption. The SONA comes as almost 20,000 workers have lost their jobs and the economy is expected to shrink once again. The opposition criticised the address for failing to address the monumental problems facing the country.
Zimbabwe President Robert Mugabe arriving for his first State of the Nation address since 2012, the gloom visible in the faces of the waiting public. In a short 30-minute speech, President Mugabe unveiled proposals to reverse a worrying economic and social crisis. He plans to ramp up value addition of agricultural and mineral resources, to tackle corruption in state enterprises, and to improve infrastructural development in energy, water and transportation. He also promised to improve the ease of doing business for international investors, including modernizing labor laws.
We must remove common law provisions that have been used by employers to unilaterally dismiss workers on notice and sending them home empty-handed, whereas this is intended to be a win-win outcome for business.
The economy growth forecast has been halved to 1.5%, but there is some good news. Maize deliveries to the state silos are higher than expected, meaning the country will need to import less grain than had been expected. The opposition, however, says the address offers little hope on the election promises for 2.2 million jobs.
What surprises me is the obvious and palpable absence of the realization that we have a crisis in this country. You go to the general crisis in the health, in energy, that is not reflecting in the president's speech. What you seem to see is an attempt to bury the head in the sand.
Ordinary Zimbabweans said the address inspires little confidence. They proffer their own solutions.
To me, I think the change of the government, simply, I think it will change everything. It's like right now, as everything, as we are now, things are not good.
It's going to take a long time because the problem in this country is we've got too much politics in this country. We are not doing anything on the ground. Nothing is being done. We only talk and talk.
As we spoke to the people on the street, municipal police arrived, sending street vendors scattering. Many say it's a sign of the growing disconnect between those in power and their struggling citizens. Shingai Nyoka, SABC News, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Let's have a look at some of the comments after the State of the Nation addressed in Zimbabwe yesterday. This one from Barrett, who says, they say the SONA is over. Put bluntly, there's nothing worth talking about in Zim. That one from Barrett. Frida Mukanga says, in addition to the Zim asset, the president gave another 10-point plan. Hashtag SONA talks about. Nora says, looks like tourism is the only sector that all MPs agree is doing relatively well, but more can be done. Talking about the State of the Nation address, of course, that was delivered yesterday in Zimbabwe. ERC says Section 140.4 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe provides for the State of the Nation address at least once a year. That one from ERC, keeping a very sober view on it. Now, technology is developing at an alarming rate, and as society adapts and connects on a variety of platforms, so businesses are also expected to keep up. According to the latest internet research statistics from Worldwide Works, 93% of major brands here in South Africa use Facebook, 79% use Twitter, but only 58% use YouTube. Despite this finding, last year, YouTube was actually South Africa's second most popular social network. But are businesses overlooking opportunities? To tell us a little bit more, we are joined from Cape Town by the spokesperson for Google South Africa, Mitch Atagana. Very good morning to you, Mitch. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. How's Joburg today?
Oh, Joburg's always good. Always good. We've got much better weather than you guys in Cape Town. Tell me, why are so many businesses not keeping up with social media and let's call it more interactive visual channels?
Well, I think a lot of the time with every new technology, businesses need to understand it. They need to evaluate and analyze to see if it would be worth it for their business. But more importantly, it's a case of seeing how it will fit into their business. And if we talk about YouTube, very few businesses have figured out just how they can use the platform to share their message and fit it into their current narrative.
Now, why, just put us in the picture, why should businesses in South Africa and the rest of the continent right now be looking to incorporate video channels like YouTube and others into their toolkit?
Well, very simply because as the audience, we are constantly watching video. A 3-minute clip or even a 30-second shot about something interesting is something I can watch on my commute to work, while I'm waiting for something or while I'm sitting waiting to do this interview. And brands can find ways to insert themselves into that community of where our attentions are. We also, with our mobile devices all the time, we're all looking for things to do while we waste time, as it were. And brands need to start understanding where the audience goes is where they need to be.
How does a business get started on this way? If you start from zero now, what would your advice be to business?
So there are different ways for businesses to use YouTube as a platform. You could create your own YouTube channel and find ways to promote your brand, educate your consumers, and just share your message. Or you can find creators. So there are people on YouTube who have built a following and a brand online already. So I'm sure you've heard of Suzelle DIY.
Yes, absolutely.
She's a popular example in South Africa. And Checkers actually have found a way to partner with her to help build their brand using her brand. So those are other ways that businesses can get involved. If you don't think your product is something that warrants a whole YouTube channel, you can find a creator in South Africa. And we have so many talented creators in South Africa that you can partner with to help spread your message. You've
mentioned Suzelle DIY, which is, of course, very popular here in South Africa. What are some of the other success stories, not just here, or continental-wide, or even globally, that stand out for you, that others can maybe follow?
No, definitely. So there's a really fantastic creator group in Ghana. It's called it's actually a YouTube show called An African City. And what they did is create 14-minute stories that talks about living in Africa and what it means to be an African in Africa. So that's a really great channel. And I think in South Africa, again, Do Comics is a really, really nice channel that takes a look at life in South Africa and what we as a society think about things. So that's quite nice. Internationally, there's so many of them. There's a really popular young lady in the UK called Zoella, and she does makeup tips and just lifestyle issues around being a woman in London and things like that. So there's lots of really talented people out there creating content.
And what would you say are the key points in ensuring the right strategy in order to portray the correct message?
Yeah, I think when you think about creating content on YouTube, you've got to keep it succinct. So short videos really do well because people can, again, easily watch it in a commute or while they're waiting. You have to be very clear. Usually, having a well-thought-out process. Be consistent. If you're going to publish a video every Thursday at 8 a.m., make sure it is every Thursday at 8 a.m. Keep to a format. People like to come and know exactly what they're going to get. And keep it engaging. If it's engaging, we'll definitely watch it as the audience.
And what are the things you should be avoiding? What can we get wrong?
Really, really long, convoluted videos. Don't create a 1-hour clip talking about everything yet nothing. Have a message. If there is no message, what's the point? Also communicate very clearly to your consumer base what you're trying to do and invite them to be part of the process. Invite them to comment, invite them to contribute, invite them to give feedback. That always helps.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Mecha Katagana. Joining us from Cape Town, spokesperson for Google South Africa. We're talking about how you can incorporate YouTube videos in selling your business or your products or your services or whatever it is. And only 58% of South African businesses are using it, while on other social media channels, they're up in the 90s, up in the 90 percentage points. Very interesting. Now, let's take a look at what's happening on our Facebook page. Always very busy there. 4 suspects arrested in connection with the murder of a 21-year-old woman with albinism in Manguzi, in the far north of KwaZulu-Natal, have abandoned their bail condition. Of course, we were going to speak to them about this morning. Unfortunately, they have network issues down in KwaZulu-Natal, and we are unable to do this segment. However, we did cover the Zimbabwe president, Robert Mugabe, who delivered his State of the Nation address yesterday, unveiling a 10-point plan aimed at reversing the economic crisis and restoring jobs. Then, South Korea is willing to discuss North Korea's demand for an end to sanctions imposed over a 2010 naval attack. The South said earlier, a day after the rivals struck a landmark pact that diffused the standoff between their forces. Now, for more news on that and other international stories, go to our Facebook page. Type in SABC Newsroom in our search bar at the top left-hand corner. Normally, we'll pop up, like our page, and we'll be active in your stream. You can get all the stuff we bring to you all of the time. Time for us to take a break now. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News. SABC News seeks to be the biggest, the most extensive and diverse news organization on the continent. Our mission is to provide accurate and credible news and current affairs programming throughout the day. We are committed to covering every part of the continent. We reflect the world to Africa and Africa to the world. SABC News, Africa's news leader. Now available throughout the continent.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. Just a day after 8 former policemen were found guilty of murdering the Mozambican Mido Masia, another case of alleged police brutality has surfaced. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate says it will investigate the new video of alleged police brutality by Douglasdale Police. This comes after 2 officers were filmed allegedly choking a man until he passed out while his friend begged them not to harm him. The incident happened last week in Fourways, north of Johannesburg. Meanwhile, in Mozambique, Mido Masia's family says they will never find closure. 8 former policemen found guilty of murdering the Mozambican taxi driver will now appeal their guilty verdict. The High Court in Pretoria ruled yesterday that all 8 were complicit in Masia's death. And the UN says it is ready to act immediately unless South Sudan's President Salva Kiir signs a peace deal with rebels. Kiir is scheduled to sign a deal to end months of brutal civil war later today. Well, remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Simply just search for SABC Newsroom. Of course, you can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Gibbon, back to you.
Thanks, Anine. Now, in October, some of the country's top design professionals and industry experts will again get together for the Business of Design seminar program, designed to equip South African creative businesses with the skill set to successfully commercialize their business. The program promises to be a paradigm shifter for those in the industry. And to give us a little bit more, we will be joined from Cape Town by Lawrence Brick and Kathleen O'Cleary of the Platform Creative Agency. Very good morning, guys. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Hi, thank you.
Your spring seminar is around the corner. What's the expectation? Can we start with you, Kathy?
Yes, well, we've got a great lineup of speakers. I think I really need to explain what the Business of Design is all about. We invite professionals to come and help other businesses to help their business become more functional. We work with a lot of creative designers and artists and artisans, and though they're fantastic at producing wonderful products or wonderful experiences for people, they are not so great on the business side. So instead of doing lectures and how to do business like an academy, we actually bring in professionals who help to talk about their own experiences and encourage people. It's also a great networking seminar. So For the spring lineup, we've got people like Jim Brett from West Elm in the United States. So for anyone who's producing phenomenal product that's ready for export, he'd be an amazing person to come and see. He's talking about designing under license, which is a big issue for young designers in South Africa who feel that they have to make their products, and very often that's not the case. So he's one of our headline speakers. I'll be talking on curation, on curating your business, which is something that a lot of people don't realize that they need to edit. They need to tell their story, the narrative and the content of their business, and how to project that and market it. Our co-founder, Trevor McGann, will be speaking on the right price, the right place, the right markets. You know, very often designers produce items that they feel is worth a lot more than they think it is. And the realities of bringing that to a retailer like Jim Brett in the States, you know, there's a lot of pitfalls that they have to learn. So Trevor's a great expert on that.
Lawrence, to come to you, how do you see the lectures, discussions, and workshops and the audience participation? How's all of this going to benefit what you guys and the rest of the industry do?
Well, I think what's amazing about business design, I mean, for me, one of the most amazing things actually is the energy, because part of the thing is that the audience or the delegates have got access to guys who are really, really brilliant in their fields, and most of the speakers are South African, and the whole thing is about learning best practice from people who've actually gone out and done things. So, you know, we've got great speakers who kind of talk about their success stories, and along the way, they also explain their failures and the pitfalls. So the whole thing is, it's quite a humbling experience, and it's also very, very sharing. And you can take something away, and actually you walk away and you've got practical tools to actually go about implementing in your business. So, you know, as opposed to going to an academic institution, you know, you can straight away actually make real steps towards, you know, monetizing your business more.
Now, Kathy, I understand you guys will be in Johannesburg as well, but, you know, Cape Town was the world design capital. That distinction went to the mother city now last year. What has it meant to Cape Town, and what are you coming to do in Joburg?
I think World Design Capital meant quite a bit to Cape Town in that it made a lot of people working in the design field realize, one, how important design is to actually everything that we touch and do and interact with, but also that we are global players. And I think there's enough design consciousness in Cape Town to really give people confidence to go out into the world. And our designers are doing just that. But our program in Johannesburg is very, very similar. We have more or less the same lineup of speakers. We do bring a bit of Cape Town energy to that. We are all based in Cape Town, but most of us are ex-Joburg people too. So we understand the differences in the city, in the two cities.
Lawrence, what kind of feedback have you had from those that have attended seminars past?
We've actually had some amazing stories. I mean, just the other day, we actually got an email from somebody who actually said he came in on the last business design conference. He's actually gone about changing his whole business. He's launching a whole new tech business. And just quite a few of the learnings which you actually got from different speakers. So you actually are seeing that. I mean, you're seeing companies, for example, like Design Team, who were also part of the seminar. In fact, were also, you know, actually delivered talks at the seminar as well. Actually go about change their business in terms of branding, how they're looking at the markets, how they're finding new markets, and that's what it's really all about.
Kathy, now you're very experienced in the business. You've consulted many top design businesses here in South Africa. If I was a young designer and I came to you for a little bit of advice this morning, what would be the first rule that you'd tell me?
I would say you have to stick at it and you have to work exceptionally hard. I think most creative people have no problem coming up with a concept or an idea. I think it's actually then bringing that right through into bringing it to market. And that's the hardest part. Creativity is a wonderful thing, but business is more important. And if you're on you have the ability to create a business that also brings employment to people, then you really have to work very hard.
Hard work. That's not what people want to hear, Kathy.
I'm afraid that's what it's all about.
Lawrence, finally, just tell us quickly. You worked on the trade exhibition, 100% Design. Tell us about that and what has it meant to the community, the design community, that is.
Well, I think what's actually quite amazing about 100% Design is, I mean, just picking up on what Kathy said, I think South African design is really now at the same standard where it can actually be showcased alongside the top of international design. And that's really what 100% Design was all about, is giving our designers, the manufacturers, a platform to actually showcase their goods, local goods, alongside some of the top international brands as well. So, you know, it really, really was quite phenomenal in that way, and actually made you almost quite emotional to be South African and to see where our industry is.
It's wonderful. I can see you've been in Cape Town for a while now. You do get a little bit more emotional than Lawrence. Thanks for joining us today. Kathy, great to have you also with us. Of course, these are the guys who bring us the business of design, a range of seminars. It's going to be, well, beyond in October. It's going to be fantastic for all young designers and, of course, businesses in the business of design here in South Africa. Now, for a very interesting final segment. My grandfather would have shot me, by Jennifer Teague, I think, is the extraordinary and moving memoir of a woman who learns a dark truth about her past. Adopted at the age of 7, she grew up knowing little about her birth mother and grandmother, although she still spent time with them occasionally, but then one day accidentally discovered the truth about her family's Nazi history. She was a mixed-race German woman, the granddaughter of Armin Goeth, the brutal Nazi commandant. Now, this story captured Teague's personal journey of discovery. She joins us on Skype from Sydney in Australia this morning. Very good morning to you, Jennifer. Fantastic to have you with us.
Good morning.
An incredible story. What encouraged you to share this story with the world?
Well, there are several reasons. You know, it wasn't a decision that I made immediately after discovery. With the time, I understood that the story is, I would say, bigger than me, because it's such a symbolic story, and it's actually a proof that sometimes life is strange. Let's say it this way, that life is sometimes stranger than fiction. And I thought it's a story that needs to be shared, that I shouldn't take with me to my grave. This was one of the reasons. But there was another really important reason, was that I read a quote by Bettina Göring. I don't know whether you're familiar with the name. She's the grandniece of Hermann Göring, who was the commander-in-chief of the German Air Force in the Nazi era.
I know him very well.
She decided to sterilize herself. And I thought it's a personal decision, but I thought it's a wrong sign.
Yeah.
So I decided to set a positive example.
It's absolutely incredible. I want to take you back to yourself before we talk about, of course, later on. The initial reaction you had when you discovered that this was your story.
Well, it wasn't, it was not that I discovered this was my story. It was very normal, actually, an ordinary day in August, 7 years ago. And I was in the central library of my hometown. I live in Germany. I live in Hamburg. And I was in the central library, and I was strolling around in the department, the psychology department, not in the history department, what one might assume. And I suddenly I saw a book with a red cover that grabbed my attention. So I took this book out of the shelf, and just by leafing through its pages, and I saw photographs, and the book contained text and information, I found out that pictures that I saw in the book reminded me of my biological family, and there were some biographical details in the end which perfectly matched the information that I had from my adoption papers. So at this very moment, I understood that it was not a random book that I was holding in my hand, but the story was about my biological mother and my biological family. So to find out a secret, a family secret, so, and one could say so profound, was really, really difficult. And at this very moment, it felt like the carpet was ripped out under my feet.
I want to ask you about, Germany today is very much a different place from what Germany was 50, 60, 70 years ago. What's the reaction been in Germany to your book? And also, you're now traveling the world. What's the reaction elsewhere?
Well, absolutely. It's so different. The generation today, in comparison to the generation immediately after the war, there was a wall of silence in Germany. No one talked about the Third Reich. Today, it's very different. We have in German school system, education about the Holocaust is mandatory. So my story, when I started to share the story with the public in Germany, it was very well received. And actually, even they approached me because they like to use it in school. When you tell a story by a personal story, it is less a distance than if it's just history, if it's numbers. And this is also why they often invite survivors, for example, to school to share their story, because it just, it's more gripping. It gets closer to you. And the reaction worldwide so far, the book was published in 11 countries or in 11 different languages also, was overwhelming. And I work now, one could say I gave up my job. I was working in advertising for years, and I work full-time as a speaker. And I love to share the story because I see, although it's a very individual story, the themes I'm talking about, they are universal themes. And people approach me and they say that it really inspires them and that they find themselves. Yeah. I talk about, of course, about the historical aspect, but also about identity. This is one of the major themes, identity, or the toxic power of family secrets. And this is something that a lot of people can relate to.
And what are your sons saying about the title of your book?
Well, my sons I don't say the exact age because I wanted to keep them a bit out of the public eye, and also the names, the books, it's not their real names. But they do know about the family's past. And I mean, I was adopted, so my children, it's a different thing because for me it was so, I would say, so disturbing because it came so out of the blue, and it is the biological family line that I missed for so many years. For my children, there's more distance from the family side, but also from from distance in time. So they can deal with it very well. And people sometimes think we talk about it all the time. No, we don't. They are so young. So they're interested in soccer and stuff like this. What was important to share the family secret, to lift the toxic power. So I think they can live with it very well. And, the book, they're not in the age where they would consume or they would read the book or see the movie Schindler's List. No, they haven't seen it yet. They're too young. But when they're older, yes.
Well, Jennifer, it's an incredible story. I really love the book. Thank you very much. Jennifer Tigg coming to you live from Sydney in Australia this morning. Of course, the book is called My Grandfather Would Have Shot Me. Incredible story about a young woman who realizes the Nazi past of her family and the fact that she is black. And a very emotive title, My Grandfather Would Have Shot Me. He was a very high-ranking Nazi official. That's where we leave it this morning. I thank you for joining us. Newsroom, of course, is broadcast live from our studios here in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Don't forget, we're also live on YouTube right now, if the camera can. There we go. Thank you. The show is available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom, where we love it in the morning. Bye.